questions that are being asked of us to make decisions on, in terms of number 9, we may get to those same questions as a commission, but it's our role to get to those questions. But we can't make decisions about San Bernardino County or LA County, or we haven't even been there yet. So as I appreciate Q2 is trying to get us to move along that process, and I think they've shown us that we as a commission need to have some discussion first. But we can't sit here and think out loud and throw things out to the Q2. We need to think about this as a whole and then provide that direction. But I can only imagine that in a conceptual basis, not in an actual mapping at all. I just cannot see maps, even insight maps, being done right now.
Commissioner Aguirre, if I may, I just want to make sure that we're not actually recommending anything. Anything that's on here is as a question to pose to the commission.
And I maybe recommendation is the right way, but I think it's taking the summary to the next level. And we may agree with every single one of these points, but I think we, to some degree, need to make. ICQ2 is providing all that information in a summary from the public testimony, but the results of that summary, what we decide as a commission, we've heard, is for us to do, not for. Anyway, that's just maybe I'm overstepping because I don't think you provided recommendations, but it's a way to, you're trying to take the summary to the next level, but I think that's a step for maybe the commission to do.
Ms. Blanco.
Okay, so maybe one way to think about this document is that it's a summary of the options we have so far been provided with. So it really does summarize. I mean, we'll go back and we'll look at our notes and see if something's missing. But one value of this is it says, as you move forward, remember, these are the options that have been presented to you. So maybe we can agree that that's what this is really a summary of. Not just information, but what people have testified about in terms of differences of opinion and options for, I have my mic on, and differences of opinion about which way to go. So one, maybe we can, that's what this summary is. And I think that might make it seem a little less traumatic if we understand that that's what it summarizes. Secondly, I do think there might be a couple of things that we have heard repeatedly that would be worth us asking Q2 to do simulations for us. One of, there have been some key areas, geographic areas, where we've gone that people have said, my county is divided in 3 assembly districts, 2 congressional districts, 2 Senate districts. My city is divided in, 3 congressional. I mean, we've heard some pretty amazing stuff. And maybe we could say, give some principles for not big like counties, because I think that's too hard, but that we would not. What would it look like if we didn't divide? If counties were not divided in more than 2, or that cities were always kept whole, and kept in one assembly district, that we never split cities. And, that's just a thought, that there could be some things that would begin us down the road of looking at how the boundaries then are going to ripple if we said, we really do believe that cities should never be split between these different political jurisdictions. Maybe something even as simple as that would begin to give us a sense of how it pushes out different lines. I don't know.
Commissioner Yap.
Keep in mind that we are here and we're confessing to the fact that we have never drawn any map before. This is our very first time. To the same extent, Q2 has never drawn maps in the manner that we're proceeding to draw maps. So they too are going through this exercise with us, and I believe the intent of this summary is for Q2 to give us what they know, what they learn. And I don't believe that the intent is for us to give them any direction if we don't want to, okay, or instruction. In fact, we're not giving them any instruction by intent. So why don't we receive this as a report and treat it as such, okay? That's number one. Number two is, for each of the bullets that was presented to us, starting on the first page, instead of giving it to us in a text format, I would really like to get that translated to a map format, okay? Again, not drawing maps, not trying to get down to 1 vote or even 10%. But if we were to draw, let's say, east-west, what would that look like? And just leave it at that, and with no commitment or anything else. If we want to keep the agricultural valley as a senatorial district, what does that look like? If we want to try to keep Merced County as whole, now how many other county are we going to have to break apart in order to make that make that happen? Again, we're not drawing maps. We're just visually seeing what it is that people are asking for. We heard it verbally. We may have seen it in some kind of crude map form, but without any of the population number in it. We really don't. At least I have difficulty envisioning as to what that means. Every county want to keep it whole. But what does that mean? How many other counties do we have to break apart in order to keep that one county whole? And those are the kind of input that I wish to see. So if there's any feedback, this report, I would love to see it in a pictorial form as compared to be a verbiage echoing, all the notes that we individually have taken. Thank you.
So one comment might be, and then Anna, and then we'll go over here.
Yeah, if I may, the only issue that I would like the Commission to consider about that type of approach is we're going to be heading into very populous areas where there will very likely be not just 2 different options, but multiple options. And so drawing a map of every possible option that's presented is probably not going to be logistically possible. Just for the Commission.
And my comment was going to be that that there is a lot of dense information here, so we could not draw or conceptualize a map with all the different economic interests, rural agricultural needs, recreational tourism, different from populated areas with different needs which currently dominate politics. I mean, if we perhaps could go and say, on the first one, could we just look at economic interests that include the needs of agriculture, for example, as a starting point? But anyway, who is over here? Connie?
I wanted to expand on and respond, I think, to Commissioner Filkins-Weber's concerns regarding how this draft executive summary might be interpreted by the public. And I really feel like, this is a work in progress, and we will have many drafts as we go along of different types of materials, as we even have had to date on various kind of administrative issues. And to me, any draft that were provided, the only way that it could really be interpreted by the public as Q2 kind of wagging the commission around is if we were not to do our due diligence as commissioners to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. I know that we were nearly, if not all of us, at each of these hearings, either in person or watching online, to make sure that it's really an accurate reflection of what we heard, and that the public have the opportunity to do this as well. And I, of course, share the same concerns regarding posting, so I'm hoping that our staff back in Sacramento, within a matter of hours can get this up onto the website. And I think that I feel the same way when I look at the key decisions around the region. I don't take these as set in stone. I appreciate that we have something to begin the process and to guide our thoughts, but I do not by any means find these definitive. I think these might, in some cases, they are the right framing questions for my personal opinion as one commissioner. In some cases, there are other framing questions which don't appear and which I would think that we as commissioners need to add in so that we have really the complete picture. So I hope by the time we come back to having the conversation in Long Beach that we have all gone to the effort and that the public as well has helped to move this from a draft executive summary to draft 2 of the executive summary. And I do appreciate the work that went into it, such as it is.
Commissioner Dye, then Commissioner Blanco.
I agree with Commissioner Yao, and I think this is what Commissioner Baraba was attempting to communicate with his idea of insight maps, is that this is not, this is not starting to draw the lines. It's merely to help us get a pictorial representation, which I think we've all been trying to do on our own as we've been receiving this public testimony. We'd like to see what this option looks like and what does it mean? How far down does it go? Does it scoop into the Bay Area? I mean, these are the questions that that we need someone who has that information to help us draw so we can get a sense of the kind of direction we actually want to give when it comes time to actually draw the maps. I also, I personally would like to see for the regions that we've gone to, I think there are a couple of key options in each area. I don't actually think we would disagree on them. And again, this is not to put anything in stone. It's just to get, as Commissioner Yao pointed out, a pictorial representation of what this looks like. So we have a sense to help us form our thinking around how we would approach actually drawing the maps. I also am just concerned about losing time because I'm afraid if we do this perfectly, we would wait until the end, until we received 100% of the testimony, until we've gotten all the emails into the, queue, and then we would, in that instantaneous moment when we've received all the information, then be able to draw the maps. I think, practically speaking, just the amount of data that we're going to have to process, we're just not going to have time, the luxury to do that. So I think we need to start developing our thinking and our framework now, and for me, it would be very helpful to see a couple of, conceptual, maps that will, again, as Commissioner Baraba pointed out, provide some insight so we can start thinking about, if we do this, if we keep this county whole, it's going to cause a problem here. If we think of it as a community of interest on agriculture and separate along natural boundaries instead, it might cause a problem here. Again, just to get a sense of what the issues are so that as we go and move into other regions and get more public input, we might be able to ask more pointed questions, which I think we've been doing as we've just been going along in this sequence of hearings. I think each of our public hearings have gotten better. We've been able to ask more specific questions. So to me, it's about preparing the commission to be able to be ready for the moment in time when we do have all the information. And I don't feel like it commits us at all to anything.
Commissioner Blanco.
Yeah, after Commissioner Filkins-Weber made her point, I thought that because our calendars that we all are carrying around said wrap-up, regional wrap-up session, that was going to be noticed in today's agenda for the public, and it's nowhere in here. It just says that we're having an input meeting. So we shouldn't even be having this conversation. It hasn't been noticed. There's no, place for this. Nobody knows that this was going on. So we really can't have this conversation. This is not agendized.
Yes, Mr. Claypool.
It was noticed in our calendar. It was not noticed in the agenda that came here, but we have carried it on to the end of this meeting as just the additional part of this business. So,
where is it? Where was it?
It was noticed on our calendar when we
the one that we have, or the one that's for the public?
the one is for the public.
Yeah, but that's not in the agenda.
Yes, and so we had this problem as we moved into this process, and so we just carried it forward. But we fully intend to as we move forward in this process with each one, agendize it to the point that we can. But that was the dilemma that we had, and this is the way we carried it forward as an addition to this meeting on the end, and noticed it from the chair.
That's fine. I just don't think we can keep talking about this if it's not noticed.
I have similar concerns because in the discussion back and forth about what type of direction we provide to Q2, my assumption would be that if we were going to provide direction, we would have to formally vote on whatever direction we were going to provide. And because we're not noticed for a business meeting or a wrap-up on the agenda, I just don't, even though we have the numbers of commissioners here, I just don't think we could move forward with that. And furthermore, I do think that the commissioners that are not here, if they had anticipated that we would be dealing with some of these fundamental process issues on how to move forward, they might have wanted to participate in this decision and conversation as well.
All right. So any additional comments, Mr. Claypool?
No, sir.
Okay. So if that's true, and legal committee essentially agrees, then let me say that that unfortunately we cannot move forward with this. That it's been a great discussion, and I think a necessary discussion, because we really see a couple of things. One is that the complexity of trying to develop a concept of how maps will eventually be developed, first of all, and then secondly, how very difficult it's going to be for us to even begin to draw some lines. So, are there any other comments?
Question. If that is the case, and if the concern is about notice, is there anything on the, that means we can't discuss this in Long Beach either? If I'm, we have this on the agenda. I mean, the concern seems to be this particular discussion is not on this agenda today. If it is not on the agenda for April 27th and 28th, how is that any different? We won't be able to discuss it then either.
Can we have time to agendize for San Fernando Valley and San Fernando and Antelope Valley?
We would have to set another business meeting, which we do not have set.
Chair?
Yes.
Don't we have some general items regarding outreach processes that for the outreach committee?
Yeah,
So
my response was that within the technical outreach committee that we would discuss this and then make a recommendation to the full commission, and according to the agendas, if we set it as they have been set up, then certainly at that point the commission has the opportunity to either approve recommendations from subcommittees, advisory committees, and we could move forward in that way. So any comments? Yes.
Do we have enough time? I mean, as I thought, I heard it was half an hour for each subcommittee, advisory committee, plus or an hour. I mean, personally, I don't think this discussion is going to be anywhere near done in an hour. Plus, I just Commissioner Raya is mentioning in terms of if we do want to carry this over, today's the last day to agendize. Am I correct? Today's the last day to agendize anything for the Saturday and Sunday. So if we want to do it, should we not put a business meeting on, just to make sure?
Mr. Claypool.
The earliest that we can agendize it for is Lancaster. We can put on a business meeting there, and we can flesh out the agenda for that.
I think we should put it on just to be safe. Would be my.
Well, we have to, because we need to. Your line drawer needs to have this input. They need to be able to start this process.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Perhaps individuals that haven't weighed in on this. Maybe Mr. Parvenu. Perhaps you could offer your thinking.
And I think I agree that we need to, at this point, no, I concur with the earlier speakers. We need to move on and resolve this under most appropriate circumstances.
Yes.
I am curious, though, looking at the 28th agenda, speaking of agendizing items, we had set a business meeting if necessary. I'm looking at the agenda for Los Angeles. I see that's only scheduled as a input hearing. That has nothing to do with the discussion at hand. I'm curious to know why we did not have a 1 o'clock meeting. Long Beach, yes, but the next day.
No, LA we do, but I was just looking at that as well, and it starts at 1 o'clock for 4 hours of voting rights training, and that's the only thing that's